Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. So Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. The fight that never happened, but the fight that should have happened when they were both undefeated, both knockout artists. American World Champion WBC versus Unified Champion from Britain, Anthony Joshua. But this fight was one that never went ahead, and likely now, it will never happen because Anthony Joshua is still chasing undisputed, but Wilder no longer is, considering he is out of the picture, and Tyson Fury seems to be moving on without him. Tyson Fury is now that WBC World Champion and will likely go into a fight with Anthony Joshua for that undisputed championship. Now, considering it will be Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fighting for that undisputed status, what does that tell you about Deontay Wilder? Does that tell you that he didn't want it? Or perhaps his team? Because his team have maybe failed Deontay Wilder in negotiations for a third Tyson Fury fight. Apparently Deontay Wilder still wanted to fight Fury, but the contract expired, which is a glaring fault with his team, because during a global pandemic there is no reason why a contract should expire. Whatever time they lose should be added on when they are able to get the fight back on, so there is no way a contract like that should expire considering what is happening with the world, but yet it did. So there are some reasons behind the scenes of Deontay Wilder why that fight didn't happen. Whether it's Wilder is injured, whether Wilder didn't want it, whether his team just didn't put together the right contract and stipulate that there were things that needed to be put into place if he were to lose. The small print is extremely important in this situation, but still, it was something that was overlooked by Wilder's team. Now, it's not really important whether Wilder wanted the Fury fight or not, or whether it was his team that prevented it from happening. What is interesting is the fact that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua are able to fight. So why was Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder unable to do so? Was it egos? Was it egos of the teams behind the scenes? Because there was a lot of back and forth between Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua's promoter, and the manager of Deontay Wilder, Shelley Finkel. Now, anytime Eddie Hearn would say anything or send an offer to Shelley Finkel or even try and get into contact, Shelley Finkel went straight to the media and told them what Eddie Hearn had said, or even went as far as to give a response to what Eddie Hearn was saying in the email, the private email sent to him. So there was clearly something wrong behind the scenes. There was clearly a breakdown of communication between the managers and promoters of both fighters. So there were offers made as well. There were offers made to Deontay Wilder to come over to DAZN and fight on the same platform as Anthony Joshua, thus making the fight easier to make. That was before Deontay Wilder made his defense of his WBC world title against Dominic Breazeale, his WBC mandatory. So Wilder was going to be fighting him for that WBC belt, defending his title. DAZN offered him a mega deal, a 3-fight deal, to fight Dominic Breazeale on DAZN for a total of 20 million, and then 2 Anthony Joshua fights, which would see him earn in excess of 100 million. So that's 50 million per fight for the AG fight, 20 million for Dominic Breazeale. That's 120 million pay package for Deontay Wilder for 3 fights on the platform at DAZN, the same one as Anthony Joshua. Now, apparently Deontay Wilder went and had a meeting. Lou DiBella set it up, but Lou DiBella was quickly removed from Deontay Wilder's team after that, and whether that was Wilder or Wilder's team who pushed him out, because obviously then, considering they had offered him 120 million, Deontay Wilder realised that he could earn more money, and therefore, he can go back to Fox and Showtime and explain that this is the money he can earn on DAZN, so you match that or get close to it, or I'm off. So that gave Wilder the standing with his broadcaster that he was currently under. So ultimately, what Lou DiBella had done was to set up that meeting with DAZN as requested by Wilder and DAZN also, and as soon as Wilder had gone, he knew that he could make mega bucks. So in order for Showtime and Fox to maintain Deontay Wilder on their platform, they had to stump up the cash, and then obviously Lou DiBella was no longer a part of Wilder's team. Now before all of that, there was a 15 million offer sent to Deontay Wilder, an offer that he accepted, but when the contracts were ready to be sent, Eddie Hearn explained he tried to send a contract. There was no response from Team Wilder. Now, obviously, he would not be dealing with Deontay Wilder himself. He should be dealing with Shelley Finkel or those behind the scenes in Team Wilder. But What was interesting is Anthony Joshua done an interview where he explained, if Deontay Wilder offered him 50 million, then they would fight, because it was constantly Anthony Joshua and his team making offers to Team Wilder as opposed to the other way around. So, he was sent that offer from Deontay Wilder himself. Eddie Hearn got an offer saying Wilder was happy to give him the 50 million to make the fight happen, but Eddie Hearn asked to see a contract. He said, we're very interested in this offer. So he asked to see a contract, to see it in writing, to see what they would be agreeing to if they accepted this offer from Deontay Wilder. That is when they said, you have to accept the fight before we reveal the contract to you. So had they done that, they would have been going in blind. They would be agreeing to something they don't even know what is stipulated in the contract. There was nothing in writing. They have no idea what they were supposed to do in order to guarantee that 50 million sum to make the fight happen. So, in that case, how can they accept an offer when they don't even know what the contract states? So, again, the fight did not happen. And it was by this point that we realised the writing was on the wall. This fight was never going to happen, no matter what the promoter said, no matter what Eddie Hearn said about he believes the fight is going to happen. As fans, we kind of knew this fight was not going to be going ahead. Someone didn't want it, or the egos were just so large between the two camps that it was never going to be made, because no one was willing to surrender their ego in order to make this fight happen. So ultimately it did not, and the final straw was Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz Jr. Not because he lost, but on the fight week of AJ versus Ruiz, Deontay Wilder did not have a fight, so therefore a unification fight, undisputed, could have been made after that Andy Ruiz Jr. fight if Deontay Wilder was available after Anthony Joshua had fought Andy Ruiz Jr. But that fight week, AJ Ruiz fight week, Deontay Wilder announced his next fight against Luis Ortiz, a rematch of a fight that he had already won quite conclusively by knockout, knocking him down 3 times. So there was no need for a rematch, but yet still he was fighting him again. And what was so interesting about this fight is it was announced AJ Ruiz fight week, yet the fight did not happen until mid to late November. The date and the venue were not announced until months after the AJ Ruiz fight. So what does that tell you about that fight? They announced it on AJ Ruiz fight week for maybe more publicity, but ultimately that told us that this undisputed fight between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua was never going to happen. So this fight became another one of those that never did happen, one of those fights where broadcasters, promoters maybe did get in the way, but there were attempts made from Anthony Joshua's team to make the fight. Maybe Wilder himself did want the fight, but there was something going on behind the scenes. There was some reason why this fight didn't happen. Maybe it was the ego of his team. Maybe it was the ego of Deontay Wilder refusing to accept less than what Anthony Joshua got. He believed he deserved 50-50. He even said at one point, it's 50-50 or the fight doesn't happen. But Anthony Joshua had a track record of solid pay-per-view buys, of solid numbers in stadium events, like at Wembley, like at the Principality Stadium. So Anthony Joshua had proven he had that kind of draw. Deontay Wilder was barely even a pay-per-view fighter at that point. He had a few pay-per-view shows, but he wasn't a back-to-back pay-per-view fighter. Anthony Joshua was. Therefore, AJ deserved a bigger piece of the pie going into that fight. That was the reason why they were unable to surrender and go to 50-50 in Anthony Joshua's case, because Deontay Wilder did not warrant that kind of money, because he wasn't a big enough name, he wasn't a big enough draw in the US, let alone the UK either. So, the fight never went ahead. But it could have. There were so many opportunities for this fight to happen, even after Deontay Wilder turned down $120 million from DAZN to stay on Showtime and Fox and force them to pay him more. Even though he was still on a different broadcaster, that did not mean the fight couldn't happen, but still, he went in his own direction and went the Tyson Fury route, which he ended up losing, and now Tyson Fury is the one who could get undisputed with Anthony Joshua and will likely do so after we have recently heard reports that financial terms have been agreed, 50-50 in the first fight, 60-40 favouring the winner in the second fight. So progress will not be thwarted, undisputed will still go ahead, no matter who is in that fight. And by the end of 2021, we will have a heavyweight undisputed champion. Guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.